On behalf of TotalLink to Community, I just want to thank everybody for joining us, getting up a little early this morning. Hopefully you got your cup of coffee with you, but for joining us for our business breakfast, Inclusion in the Workplace. It's good business. My name is Elisa Martirano, and I'm the Director of Development at TotalLink to Community. And October is Disability Employment Awareness Month. So we're really excited to celebrate the more than 130 job placements that we've had at TotalLink over the years. And then hear from Adam and Lenore and Jim, some of the leaders in disability employment right here in our own community. We want to take a moment to thank the Rotary Club of Northbrook for their support of today's event, as well as thanking, like I said, our employment partners, Adam and Lenore from the First Bank of Highland Park and Jim from Zebra for joining us today and sharing their experiences with inclusion in the workplace at their organizations. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping things. We have our chat box set up and we will be monitoring that for any questions you might have for the presenters. We'll go through those questions at the end of the presentation, and then we can share those with everybody and get some feedback and dialogue. In addition to our presentations from our employment partners today, we're very excited to introduce you to one of our job seekers, Yinka Akari, and we're thrilled to have Yinka and his mom, Tade, joining us here. Go ahead and wave. Hi. So at this time, I would like to introduce you to TotalLink's Executive Director, Emily Raming, who's going to be telling you a little bit more about TotalLink to Community.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend your morning with us. I'm really excited to share a little bit more about TotalLink to Community with all of you. So we're a nonprofit located in Northbrook, and we help young adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities find paid work experiences out in the community. And that's really the backbone of our work at TotalLink. We also offer some educational and social programs as well. And I think it's important to tell or share with all of you why we do this work. And we do it because we believe in people with disabilities and the positive impact that their contributions have on our community. So a little history about TotalLink. We were founded in 2008 by a group of moms who all came together because they had a child or children with a developmental disability. And they were really looking to create similar opportunities that they were seeing their neurotypical children have for their child with a disability. I started in TotalLink in 2012. I was their first employee, their only employee for a period of time, and now I have the great pleasure of leading the organization as the executive director. And as Elisa mentioned, and I've talked a little bit about, employment really is the backbone or the foundation of our work at TotalLink. And we have placed 130 people in paid jobs. And you may be wondering, what kind of businesses do we work with? What makes a good employer for somebody with a disability? And the answer is lots of different types of businesses. We work with places like App Electronics, Jennings Chevrolet, Northbrook Public Library, as well as some smaller, kind of more mom and pop shops as well, like Peachtree, which is a gift shop, our smaller gift shop in Northfield. So there's not a one size fits all when we think about who makes a good employer for somebody with a disability. That is something that's very individualized for each person. So when we're creating these jobs or helping to find these jobs for the young adults, we use a process called customized employment. And it's really considered a best practice in our field. It's a multi-step, time-intensive, individualized process where we spend a good chunk of time really getting to know a job seeker up front, learning what their skills are, when and where they're at their best, what their strengths are, and also what doesn't work. And then we use that information to help match it with an employer's needs. And so it's really my pleasure to kind of kick off our meeting today, sharing a video about Yinka. Drew, one of our employment specialists, has had the pleasure of getting to know Yinka and his skill set, and we've captured some of that information in a very short video that we'll share in just a few minutes. And as you watch the video, I want you to think about what types of roles or responsibilities in a business do you think would be a good fit for him? And as we hear the employers talk, think about, okay, knowing that they did this in a bank or at Zebra Technologies, what kind of businesses maybe do you know that may be interested in meeting Yinka and learning more about him? And so after the employers talk, we'll have the opportunity to kind of brainstorm a few different ideas for Yinka. But we're gonna start with a video to really highlight Yinka and all of the things that he has to offer an employer. So Lisa's gonna start that video for us.
Wasn't that great? Yinka has a lot to offer an employer. And while we hear from our employers today, we'd love for you to just continue, like Emily said, to think about how they've successfully onboarded young adults from TotalLink, and think about Yinka's potential jobs and employers that he might be a good fit for. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Jim Grzyk. Jim is the Senior Manager of Repair Operations at Zebra Technologies Corporation. And we're so excited to have just recently started our employment partnership with Zebra. And we've been so impressed by their commitment to inclusion in the workplace. And we're looking forward to having Jim tell you more about how they got started, their programs, and their best practices. So Jim, take it away.
Thank you. Am I unmuted now, hopefully, right? Okay, so here at Zebra, how did Zebra get into, I think some of the topics we're looking for is talk about our inclusion in our workspace, how we got started, and some of the best practices as you kind of talked about. And I've been with Zebra for 10 years as part of the repair operations business. I started as an engineer in the department and then transitioned to a manager role about 5 years ago, and then the current role is senior manager of repair operations. And here we have, 350 people. We've grown from 125 people to 300. And you talk about, overall as an organization, Zebra, and what makes sense in being people managers and people leaders, right? And it all comes from the culture that Zebra promotes, right? And so that's what my experience here with Zebra has been over the years, is you talk about that culture and where that comes from and how that gets started. It's about the leadership and their commitment level, right? At some point, they went out, did some benchmarking and said, hey, when we want to be in this inclusion and diversity space, the I&D, what things do we want to commit to and what things do we want to do? right? And so they've built up this foundation. They've done a fantastic job in my mind over the recent years to build this program out to get to the point where we're at today. And, you know, me being the leader of the business operations here for repair, partnering with programs like TotalLink here is great because it's another source for us to have a win-win, right? It's a simple thing. If somebody wants to work, we have work for them, right? It doesn't matter who they are. And, you know, Zebra's culture here is, you know, putting together, you know, resource groups for I&D and talking about, you know, making sure that you've got the inclusion, you've got the diversity, you've got the belonging, and you've got the equity amongst all these different groups, and recognizing that there are a lot of different opportunities for people, just whether it's, you know, any type of, you know, scenario with these groups, you know. So they've come up with these resource groups where people can join them, you can be allies of them and support them, right? Just because you're a member of a group doesn't mean you can't be a supporter of that group. And as people managers, we have a lot of differences between, you know, 350 people every day. When someone's walking in the door, you just don't know what's going on outside of work, inside their minds when they walk in. But the expectation is, you know, everybody's going to work together, but it may be a tough day for somebody and you don't know that, right? And so a part of the, you know, foundation that Zebra has with the culture is about, you know, creating internal training, right? And so they've gone through, and you've got, you know, from a leadership perspective, you know, things like inclusive leadership essentials to help our management team work with a variety of different skill sets and get people to realize that as being a leader and every individual, you may have some unconscious biases out there that you have to just be aware of, right? And it's creating that culture and that thought process, which then leads us down to, you know, the next paths of being, again, people managers, and understanding that if people don't self-identify with some type of disability, but there's so many people, if we go through and, you know, recently participated in the Diversity In seminars, and walking away from there, you know, you learn that there is a large percentage of people throughout the course of your life that will have some type of disability, right? And so just creating that awareness within the operations and the businesses, you know, at the top levels down really pushes it to the next level. So the more I keep mentioning it to my management, the more they keep mentioning it to the staff, it just creates a better culture and a better workplace where people are being able to be open, expressive. And that's what we need is, you know, I don't want to have to pry and ask questions, but be your authentic self is a very common thought process around here. And being open to listening to people and understanding that everybody's got their own experience and they may think differently. So you can understand that and be an ally and a supporter of that. And there's many resources here for people. Zebra has started with this, you know, and hiring people with disabilities in this particular I&D space here by creating a staff that supports that. And Kevin Bradley is somebody that reached out to us as business owners and said, hey, we've got some opportunities here. Let's partner with different organizations. And it's just been very positive across each operations and organizations that we've worked with. And it's then having those commitment levels at the ELT staff to say, we want to be here. We're going to push forward with this. And then at that point, you know, on a national level, Zebra's, again, gone through the Disability Inc. and said, we want to keep promoting this. So what have we done internally? They have these discussions. So it's a global discussion with people that have different experiences, sharing their experiences on a regular basis. You can join, you can ask to share your experience. You can have those chat sessions. So we've had leadership from our vice presidents having, you know, half-hour chat sessions to talk through how do you have some of those tough conversations, right? And courageous conversations, asking those questions of people and letting them share their experiences and listening. So again, as the management staff here, when we talk about being people leaders, to me, I remind my staff all the time is, you know, we're in operations. Each day we have some goals to meet. But as people leaders, the reality is if your staff has some challenges, how do you work together to associate and understand that the culture that we're in, hopefully we're fostering a positive environment. If somebody's having a difficult day just because walking in the door was a tough day, we have to understand that and understand that how can we work together and partner together to be successful. And again, working with different people and bringing them in, here to Zebra has been about, not a short-term job. I don't want to use that term. I want to use a career, right? Get in the door, start working. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in a couple of years? You may say, hey, in 3 years, I want to be in marketing. Well, in operations, I don't have a marketing department, but guess what? There's some opportunities here that we can connect some dots, right? And again, you talk about here in the space of where we're going with this, right? And what's happening. So it's about the partnerships and building that. It does have to work together. Somebody's going to want to have to say, I have that commitment to joining and to moving forward with this. And again, I can't, thank our leadership enough and our ELT team for having that vision and putting that culture in place. Again, I've been here 10 years now, and it's been, I want to use the right word here, not, I want to say fantastic, it's exceptional. There's just all these adjectives you talk about, and realizing that sometimes when you have experiences, you don't understand what you're going through until you look back at them, right? And that's where, here talking through this is my first real interaction, as a parent, as a leader. I was volunteering in a youth league with kids. My kids were getting older and getting into sports. And one day, one of the parents came up to me and said, hey, can my son be a part of this team? I'm like, well, why not? They're like, well, he's got a disability. I'm like, okay. And I didn't think much of it, right? And it was just like, okay. And the park district was fantastic that we worked with. They had some programs in place where they had a coach that would come out, and you just have to have that awareness and ask questions and say, okay, so what does that mean? How do we make this work? And that kind of has carried over here as Zebra has built this foundation, this culture a little bit, and saying, hey, how do we make this work? You just have to learn some new skills. And that's some of the great things here with Zebra, about creating this culture of inclusion and belonging. We do really support that here. So when we talk about some of the things that they've gotten into and, supportive is, it's the local organizations you have to start with, right? You have to find those. And so again, Zebra's got some people in place to put that together, looking across many different spectrums. And so best practices. When we get to the best practices, I think there's many different angles you can take here and what's the right fit. Everybody's going to have their own experience. For me personally, about being open and flexible with my staff and letting them know, hey guys, everybody here has their own experience, has their own day that they've walked through, right? So just have that open-mindedness. Again, be willing to ask the questions and just listen. Have a courageous question if you can, right? Be curious, obtain the knowledge, don't hesitate to help them take that next step. So there's a lot of different avenues when you talk about in the training pieces. And again, I talked about some of the inclusive leadership and the unconscious bias that really has some opening effects to our staff, myself included, that when we go through these training sessions, gives us a common language to kind of talk through. So that, again, circles back to the culture that Zebra committed to and wanted to put in place. And I think it's they've done a fantastic job. And moving forward, I definitely looking forward to working with more organizations like yourself and seeing where we can go, right? Because each person that we bring in tells a different story, and that story helps make us where we are. Again, having over 300 people, it's a large family. We used to be a little bit smaller family to have like little backyard picnics in the parking lot here. This year we had to do it a little differently, where it's just more of a barbecue and people sitting at their spaced out tables for lunch. We weren't out there mingling, but we look forward to things like that, and we still try to keep that atmosphere here in this operation. So, just keep being courageous, have those conversations, ask and listen to people's experiences. So again, as a people manager, you can understand who you're working with and help them along in their journey.
Great. Thanks, Jim. It's so great to hear, how you're talking about just that, creating that culture of inclusion and belonging and, just how you, as you said, as a people leader, I think, sometimes it's just in those, in acknowledging, some of the challenges, but having that, like you said, courageous leadership to be willing to accept and include everyone, and take into account where people are coming from. So thank you again for sharing your experiences and for being one of our partners. I'd now like to introduce Adam Brook and Lenore Erickson from another one of our employment partners, the First Bank of Highland Park. Adam is the EVP of Operations and IT and has worked at the bank for the last 9 years. As an employer of a TotalLink client for over 4 years, Adam pursued a board opportunity with TotalLink in February of 2017 and has proudly served on the TotalLink board for the past 3.5 years. Adam lives in Elmhurst with his wife and their 2 children. And Lenore Erickson is the EVP of Human Resources at First Bank of Highland Park. She's been at the bank for the last 7 years and has been in human resources for over 30 years in a variety of different organizations. Lenore lives in Morton Grove with her husband and has 2 adult children who both live out of state.
Thank you. First on our agenda is our experience with TotalLink. So the opportunity to hire a TotalLink client came to us, we said 4 years ago during the intro. And we met with TotalLink and the candidate and found that, we had work that would be a perfect fit for, we're going to find out in the video. His name is Josh. A perfect fit for Josh's skill set. And so the experience with TotalLink couldn't have been better. Josh came to us with a job coach, or Emily or Elisa, correct me if I'm using the wrong terminology, but who was wonderful. She's moved on from the organization, but she was with Josh early on as he settled into his role with the bank. And that right away wowed me as far as the process and the intensive, just the care that TotalLink takes to make sure that the job is right for the employee, that the employee is able to settle in and be successful in their role, that the coworkers of that employee are positioned to help that new employee feel comfortable and learn the role more quickly and get indoctrinated into the job as successfully as possible. So little things like helping us and helping our management team with telling us, Josh learns better like this, or don't spring anything on him. If you're going to change process, make sure that it's all laid out visually in a booklet per se. We can help you make that booklet. Let's sit with him before we spring anything on him and make sure he understands everything that's in the booklet. And once he has a chance to digest that, he's going to hit the ground running and he's going to do a great job. As opposed to, I don't know what another organization would do, but if Josh just came in and had a hard time articulating that to us and we constantly were changing things on him, he'd have a very hard time, and it wouldn't be good for us, but it most importantly wouldn't be good for Josh. He'd be frustrated. He wouldn't have a good time at work. And we don't want that for anybody. So my experience, and I think our team's experience with TotalLink has been pretty incredible from that perspective. Over the 4 years, we've had times where we've kind of had to reset. So Josh's role has grown. He's taken on new things. And there are times we've run into challenges, just like you would with any employee. They're maybe just not getting it, or something about the way we're doing it isn't right for the employee. And TotalLink has brought in the resources to help us figure out what's going to make Josh's life easier, and might make Josh's chance at success that much higher. And it's always worked. And so just having that level of support or outside support to allow our employee to flourish in his role has been, it's pretty incredible as far as I'm concerned. And so I think that's a huge differentiator for the organization. That's part of the reason I was so impressed with the organization and said I'd really like to get involved, and had a cup of coffee with Janice Weinstein and said, how do I help more and what's available? And that's how the board position came about. But I tend to ramble, so I'm sorry, but that's agenda item number 1, I think, as far as our experience at TotalLink. I don't know if Lenore had anything to add.
Nope, not on that one. I'll
Okay.
let you go and Adam, and then I'll follow up at the end. How's that?
Perfect. Elisa, did we want to pause and try to get the video going, or?
Yes, let's try it again.
Okay.
There we go.
Josh DeVries, 28 years old.
Hi, I'm Pam DeVries. I'm Josh's mom.
And I'm Steve DeVries, lucky enough to be Josh's dad. We were trying to create as much independence as we possibly could. We wanted him to be successful in all the areas of his life. He needed to have meaningful work, but he also needed to have a real link, exactly, total link to the community is what we were looking for. So the name of the program couldn't describe any better what we were looking for and what we found.
So when looking for a job, we started right around his community and looked at different businesses that had a need. We connected with the First Bank of Highland Park, and they had a need that really fit Josh's skill set.
Working with TotalLink has been great. So the opportunity to hire Josh came to us via TotalLink, and it's been a really great partnership. From day one, we were very impressed with Erin Lemrick's approach to the entire process. She served as an excellent liaison between Josh and the bank, and was instrumental in making sure that the partnership worked well and that this was a really good fit for Josh and that it was a good fit for the employer as well.
Of the life in high school was kind of not there anymore. And so the social programs, have been amazing for Josh. He's participated in many, many of them and loves them.
We discovered through TotalLink was not only a way to connect him with other people with similar interests who could kind of work together and expand his social outlets while he was having fun, but also through TotalLink, I'd have to say that we found out strengths and interests of Josh that we never knew about. He was involved in the TotalLink art program, and that's become such a big and meaningful part of his life. And who knew? We never knew about it until TotalLink made this offering that he became so involved with.
And we know a part of having a great life in the community is feeling connected. We offer 8 different social and educational programs that are filled with life-giving experiences.
I feel good about my life. I feel proud. I feel proud about my life.
There we go.
Adam, if you like, I can kind of talk a little bigger picture right now if you want to, and then come back to you if you like.
Sure.
Okay. So, how we got involved was one of our board members said, you need to talk to these folks. And I said, okay. And I talked to them and said, wow, didn't even know this program existed. This organization existed. And I talked to one of Adam's employees at the time. I don't even think I told Adam. And I talked with our manager and I said, hey, what do you think? I think we can do something here. And he's like, yeah, I think we can. And I guess for me, and I didn't think about it until you asked me to attend this breakfast, I just assumed all along, of course there's something we can do. And I think back about one of my very first jobs was at Kraft in Glenview, Illinois, at their R&D facility. And we had, and I mean, this is a long time ago, so we're talking 35 years ago. At that point in time, we had two folks with disabilities working at our small facility. We only had a few hundred people. One was a brilliant researcher, and another was a gentleman who worked in our pilot plant and did the cleaning. And so for me, it was just what I had been exposed to early in my career, that I wouldn't even think that there was anything else. So of course, when the opportunity came, I said, of course, let's see if there's a role that we can find in the organization. And, I think one of the things, organizations can do in addition to providing job opportunities is providing that environment where everybody who works there comes to understand and learn that we can, everybody can contribute to an organization. And, I see that at First Bank of Highland Park. And I am sure, the employees who work at First Bank of Highland Park, and if they were to go work elsewhere, would now just kind of understand, well, no, this is what an organization looks like. It includes a lot of folks with a lot of different abilities. And that is just the way life is. And I think, as kind of I look back over my career, having that experience so long ago with an organization that, was really on the forefront and was really all about inclusion before it was even, a term that we used, really kind of transformed my mindset of what an organization can and should be. And I see the exact same things at First Bank of Highland Park that I saw at that R&D facility, where, all of us who interact with Josh want to make sure he's successful. And we all, he's part of our team. And, years ago when I first worked over at that facility for Kraft, the one gentleman was actually in the office next to me. My office was up in the labs. And when I started, I was told, okay, so-and-so is in the office next to you. Here's what you need to do in case of an emergency. And it was like, okay, tell me what I need to do. I'm responsible in case of emergency. I'll take care of him. And I just kind of grew up in organizations, just kind of understanding that. And I think, the more organizations can be inclusive and incorporate a variety of folks, people will just know that that's how organizations are. And, I'd like to see, and I'm really heartened with the work that goes on in schools these days, because I know my children, have no, I was going to say they don't have any preconceived notions. They have been exposed to a variety of folks with different abilities through their school years. And so for them to then have folks in their workplace is just normal to them. And, I guess sort of that's my mission, is to, have a work environment where everybody there understands everybody can contribute and we include everybody. And it's really wonderful to see that at First Bank of Highland Park, how folks have, welcomed Josh to the organization. And I know that, in the future, if we have the opportunity and can employ other folks, they would be just as welcomed. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Adam, because I think you wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the things, within the teams.
Sure.
And, Josh is part of all those teams that we have.
Right. Thank you. And so Elisa and Emily, do I need to get us back on, or do I need to get us on any time schedule? I think we've got 20 minutes to go. We doing okay? I don't want to cut into Yinka's time.
So we're doing okay. How about, can you go like 5 minutes? Under 5 minutes?
I'll wrap up before that.
Yeah, perfect.
So thanks, Lenore. Yeah, so Josh, Josh is a valued member of a few different teams, which is kind of neat. He works in both our Highland Park and Northbrook location, and he does pretty distinctly different things at each location. So it offers him exposure to a variety of tasks and a variety of people. It's cool for me to see him be such a valued member of the team, because there are things that he does that he is probably the best person in the bank at what he does. I don't think there's anyone that scans. He loves to scan. And so we have a lot of paper documents that need to get scanned and eventually filed into an electronic document retention system. And the teams will say, man, we're going to have Josh busy for the next couple of weeks. We got mountains of stuff. And I can't count how many times people have come to my office and said, well, Josh caught up like weeks ahead of how long someone else would have gotten through this stack. He comes in, he's got laser focus on what he's going to do. I myself could learn from him on the ability to just hunker down and do what I need to do. And he fills, me and my boss talk about teams like sports teams, like everybody's got to play a position, and Josh fills a very important position for us in a few different regards. And so what Lenore alluded to, some of the things I wanted to touch on with the team is, it is neat how differences in people, whether it's intellectual or physical disabilities or different walks of life, whatever, kind of bring out things in each other that you don't necessarily know. So there are some people that maybe aren't on an org chart Josh's manager or have anything to do with Josh's chain of command, but they naturally gravitate towards helping Josh when Josh is having a hard time. And that allows us to see things about employees that we maybe wouldn't have seen otherwise, which is really a neat opportunity. So there are times when maybe the copier is driving everybody nuts, but really happens to be driving Josh nuts. And we realize we've got to figure out how to tweak our process or call in the technology company to fix the copier or whatever. Maybe there's other processes that are giving Josh a hard time. Recently, we had to call TotalLink and say, I think we need some help because he's really struggling and we hate to see him frustrated. And so Stephanie and a behavioral counselor that the organization works with came in and spent a lot of time helping us and helping Josh and got things back on track. And when Stephanie and Jonathan came in to address that with the team, Jonathan commented on the culture of our organization and that he stood in front of a bank of 12 cubicles and expected to maybe get a couple people's attention when getting ready to speak about what they had discovered we could do to help Josh through difficult situations. And not only did everybody lock their computers and turn around and listen, we had people from across the floor walk over to listen as well. And Jonathan was like, this is really cool. Like, people care about Josh, people care about helping each other. I'm sure we would do the same for any employee. But it's moments like that where you sit back and you're like, we've our culture and the diversity within the culture and our mission towards inclusion really lend itself to cool situations like that occurring. So I think I covered all the points we needed to cover or wanted to cover, but let me know if there's anything that you'd like me to touch on, Elisa or Emily.
That's great. Well, thanks. I mean, it's so wonderful to hear those, the stories, like you said, just of how, between Zebra and First Bank of Highland Park, just how inclusion has just become the norm. And, that everybody is there for one another and we're just, a big team. So I think that's wonderful to hear. I think now we'll go to Emily and see if we have any questions. If you have any questions that you want to share, you can just put them in the chat and then we can field those to the proper parties.
Sure. So 2 questions that I think are on everyone's mind is, and this could be, you know, Adam, Lenore, or Jim, what's one piece of advice you'd give to a company who's looking to explore somebody with a disability? Is there like one tip or great place to start, or?
Yeah, I can jump in. Is, you know, depending on the company size, I think makes a little bit of difference, but it does take somebody to, as I kind of alluded to, ask those questions if they don't have that relationship yet. Is where do you turn? I think there's a lot of great organizations out there that, as you get involved in this space, you know, for myself as an operations, it's been just under a year here, and we've got, you know, relationships with 3 different organizations and events that are ongoing, and we've really seen, you know, the explosion, so to say, internally with more and more this type of activities. And so when you get into that, and I think Adam kind of alluded to it, is you have to realize your management style may need to change a little bit, right? And that's what we've recognized here, is that, you know, again, being in this space just means you have to have new skill set sometimes to reach out to a coach or to say, hey, what makes sense, right? So for us, we always like to bring the person in, typically to see the operations, to understand visually what that means, because there's a lot of noise. You know, if there's trigger points for somebody, you know, what does that really mean? So as you walk through the operations and you see it, we can discuss, hey, what would be a good fit? So it's a little bit of an extension of what you do today. So to me, some of those key points are, you know, establishing an early relationship somewhere, right? And you have to get involved and you have to make that commitment, because you have to communicate. If people don't understand what's you're working towards as a goal, as a company, and building that culture, and I think I heard Lenore kind of talk about that too, as you guys said, hey, everybody just wants to help, right? And really that's what it's about, being from the leadership perspective to me. And so as you want to integrate that, anybody in that does have a disability, it's just, hey, you know, how do we make this simple for the person to communicate to either our management staff or have the coach involved? We like to try to work directly with people when necessary. And so from our perspective, that's where it's.
Thank you, Jim. Adam and Laura, anything to add, or should we go on to our next question?
I don't have anything to add. I think Jim.
Good. Okay.
hit it on the head.
So the other question that I think maybe on everyone's mind, or especially on new businesses' mind or potential employers' mind, is what, you know, what a lot of our conversations today have been about this shift that we're seeing in people's perspectives about people with disabilities, right? They're capable members of our community who can contribute. And we also touched on biases or unconscious biases. And is there one particular myth or bias that you'd like to shout out from the rooftops about working with people with disabilities that just isn't true, or maybe that you've heard other team members comment on that they were surprised about working with somebody with a disability?
I'm kind of laughing here because, you know, when I've been in human resources a long time, and you know, probably one of the biases, well, this person will take a lot more of my time. Let me tell you, there are plenty of employees that take a lot of managers' time out there. So, you know, to me, is you get the right person in the right role and you train them well, they're not going to take any more of that manager's time as any other employee who's in the right position. So, you know, over my career, there's plenty of employees who've taken a lot of managers' time. And I think that's really key. It's just finding the right role, making sure people are trained, and making sure you have a good manager and support that manager. But you would do that for any, you know, for any employee, you would want that. So, you know, that's a myth that's probably out there that is, you know, totally untrue. Because I can tell you, we've probably spent a lot less time working, you know, through any challenges we've had with Josh than we've had with other employees. So that's one of the myths that I just like to cut down right away, because it's just not true.
Right. Right.
So refreshing to hear. And just I'm aware of the time, and I want to thank Adam and Lenore and Jim for celebrating National Disability Employment Awareness Month with all of us. You know, thank you for leading by example. And so often when we're meeting with new potential employers, they say, oh, we'd love to hire someone. We're just not quite sure it would work here or how to do it here. And so often it's by sharing the stories of other employers and how they were successful that it can paint the picture for potential employers. Say, oh, okay, I get it. I get how it can work here. So thank you for sharing your story. I also want to thank Yinka and his family for being on this call. We want to take the remaining of our time to kind of brainstorm and celebrate Yinka's job development search. As we've shared, we've spent a great deal of time getting to know Yinka. And as you saw in the video, he has many skills and strengths to offer an employer. And one of the ways that we help job develop for a person is we reach out to the community and we say, hey, here's some information about one of our job seekers. What kind of jobs or responsibilities or tasks or employment opportunities do you think may be a good fit? And we reach out to the community because the community has a different walk of life than us. They know different things about different companies and roles that we may not know. So with that, I just wanted to share that we have done these brainstorming sessions a lot, and we've had some really great success come out of them. So for example, we had a community brainstorming session with a young woman, and she shared she wanted to work in the medical field. And so one of the community members said, oh, I have a pediatrician office that's very close to you. Let me see if they'd be willing to have you come in for a tour and learn more about what it's like to work in that particular pediatrics office. And so our job seeker and TotalLink went on a tour, and on the tour, they learned that the nurses were kind of overwhelmed and frustrated that they were responsible for getting all of their paperwork into electronic files. And the job seeker was like, oh, I could help you with that. I could get all those papers, scan them in and get them in your system. And the doctor thought about it, and she's like, that makes so much sense. We can hire this new employee to handle some of these more office related things, and it would free up the nurse's time to kind of use them at their best and highest level. So again, it's about creating these good matches, those win-win, and it all came from just community members sitting around the table saying, hey, let me make an introduction, or hey, I have this idea. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Drew to tell you a little bit more about Yinka. And then after that, if you guys have ideas about places that we may want to look into for Yinka, or if you have questions about Yinka's skill set, we can ask Drew and Yinka and his mom those questions and kind of have a little mini brainstorming for the remainder of our time today. So Drew, I know you're on the call, and I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, everyone, for being here. So I've had the distinct pleasure of getting to know Yinka for over a year now. Before COVID, we were meeting in our office where I could get to know all of his skills. And, one of the things that always showed up to me and, my other teammates at TotalLink was how happy and cheerful and positive Yinka was. He always brought such a positive energy and was excited to be there. Always greeted everyone very positively. Yinka really shines when he's given the opportunity to do tasks such as data entry, creating mailers. He's good with filing and organizing. During one of our meetings, I remember this is how I learned about his data entry skills. I wrote out all these specific instructions, and I gave them to Yinka, and I said, can you look up these 10 businesses and create a Google spreadsheet? And you're going to create each specific category. So I showed him how so we were just getting the spreadsheet open, and Yinka was following the instructions perfectly, and he found out he pulled up a shortcut to pull up a Google spreadsheet that I didn't know about. and had it up before I even knew what happened. You know, Yinka needed a little bit of help when we, to see exactly what I wanted him to do once the spreadsheet was open. But once, he had the task shown to him once, he had it mastered and didn't need me around to do the task. He was able to look up all the businesses, put them into each put in each category independently. He really had the task down. Yinka does work best in quieter environments where he's able to utilize a checklist. He likes to have tasks that are repeatable. So every day that he comes in, he has the same set of tasks. And he likes to work closely with a small team of coworkers. He's really looking forward to having that opportunity to showcase his strong work ethic and positive attitude. And
thank you, Drew. That's really great information about Yinka. I want to open up the floor to kind of have a little bit of a brainstorm. And I just had a question off the bat. How does Yinka get around town, or what geographical region are we looking at for Yinka?
So Yinka lives in Evanston. His parents and his brothers drive him around. Through discussions they've shared, they'd be willing to drive him places as long as it was a good fit for him. But we'd like to keep it, as close to home as possible.
Yeah. When we were watching the video and seeing Yinka's love for music and how he has had a lot of experience with kind of some like cleaning tasks and data entry, I wonder if we could explore some kind of like the local maybe coffee type shops in the area. They tend to have some really cool music playing in them, and also some of them use more of like a digital screen to display their menu options, and those types of things need to be updated. Along with, if they have like online ordering, there could be kind of a nice combo of some light cleaning and some also data entry with kind of their technology needs as well. And Evanston is kind of thriving with cute little coffee shops nearby. So that was one idea I had. And Elisa, did any questions come through your box?
Yeah, so actually one that I just had an idea. I have a daughter who is a physical therapy student and has been working in the clinics. And I know physical therapy is one industry that's still kind of going during COVID, healthcare. And they have a need in the clinics, especially now, with wiping down things, keeping, things stacked. And so maybe even, it seems like physical therapy clinics are kind of, on every block lately. So that might be even an area that, I know my daughter was saying in her clinic, there's specific checklists of all the tasks that need to be done each day. So something like that.
Yeah, and those offices also may have some need for some folding of towels, which I saw in Yinka's video. He also has that skill set. So physical therapy offices are a great idea. It's a really great idea.
And I think if anybody has, wants to jump in, I think we've said it now that you can unmute yourself. Otherwise, just like wave your hand and we'll come through and unmute you.
Yeah, I think from what I've heard, some recent applicants where you may want to look is, like Planet Fitness, right? They're back in opening and very similar to all the skill sets that you have. And I know they have some IND programs as well, I believe.
Okay. It's really interesting. Thank you. I wouldn't have thought of Planet Fitness.
Yeah, because that's exactly it. They've got the towels. They have to clean the machines after the people that are in and out. So.
And that's great to know that they have been through some training and are like-minded already, knowing that they have that program. That's great.
There's, I live in Morton Grove, which is just down Dempster Street from Evanston. So there is a new kind of shopping complex that is slowly opening up that will have a brand new Kohl's and LA Fitness, some grocery store. So this is all brand new development that's just starting to open. So I'm not sure if they have started any hiring yet. But you know, all new businesses are moving in there and just starting, and it's just down Dempster Street, so very close to Evanston. I don't know anything about it other than I watch it being built, and I know that some of the stores and businesses are slowly starting to open. So that might be, you know, they might be looking for new employees.
That's great to know. That's great to know.
It's called Sawmill Station.
Sawmill Station. Thank you. On Dempster Street. Stephanie, I saw your hand go up, and then I am aware of the time. So, Stephanie?
I saw in the video that Yinka did like packaging or like making pizza boxes. I know that a lot of places are doing a lot of like to-go orders, so like maybe smaller restaurants or like bakeries or like candy shops, because there's a lot of packaging, putting it in, creating it, tying the things on there and everything. So maybe some local shops around there to look into as well.
Great. Well, we just came up with so many ideas right there in a very short amount of time. So thank you so much for everyone participating. Yinka, we are so excited to help you find paid work out in the community. And you really have so many skills to offer an employer. So it's really our honor to celebrate this experience with you and be a part of it. And just to be respectful of everyone's time, we'll wrap up. You're welcome. I want to send another thank you to our employers who are on the call, Jim, Adam, and Lenore. Thank you so much for being our partners and being a part of our Awareness Month. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We'll be sending out our contact information. So if you have any further questions or an idea for Yinka comes to you later on today or later on this week, please go ahead and reach out and share it with us. We would love to hear from all of you. Thanks so much for being here today.